We're back for our daily college basketball best bets here on February 28th, and it is Friday, which means tomorrow is Saturday. So if you want 10 best bets for college basketball tomorrow, let's hit 130 likes in this video. Yes, 130 likes. If we get that, we will do 10 best bets for Saturday instead of just 5. So got that out the way. We've got 5 best bets, though, for today's slate for college basketball. Yesterday wasn't great, but hell, the cesspool got it done. Thank you. First time you're ever going to hear me say this. Thank you, UC Riverside, for finally doing something productive, going to Hawaii and winning. We don't have to ban the term UC Riverside here on the channel, even though they're still going to be referred to as a cesspool. But thank you, UCR. Great. We still went 2 and 3. Need to have a better day today. Let's hope we can get it done. And before we get into the best bets, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more daily college basketball best bets here on the channel. In a couple hours, we will have our NBA predictions. There are 12 games today in the National Basketball Association, so make sure to join us for that video later today. Also, make sure to go join us for our UFC Fight Night Cop versus Almabayev predictions. That fight card is tomorrow, so make sure to check that video out. Link in the description down below. It happens to be the final MMA video here in the Greedo Plays channel. After 5 years, we are moving to Greedo Plays MMA, the new channel. Make sure to subscribe to that channel. That is linked in the description down below. All right, let's get into the first of our 5 best bets for today. And let's start in Cambridge. Cambridge? If I was smarter, maybe I'd know that, but I never had aspirations of going to Harvard. So Harvard and Brown, I don't know why I said that. We're going to take Harvard. You know, we can't attend Harvard, so we're going to pick Harvard. I don't even know if I'd want to go to that. No, I'm lying to myself. I said I didn't want to go to Harvard. I never actually thought about it. Regardless, we're taking Harvard to win this basketball game. Guys, the Crimson are actually playing good basketball. They've won 3 out of 4 games, the last one being a huge road victory by 1 point at Penn. Now, we are getting to that point of the season where you have to start thinking of the Ivy League tournament. There are 3 games left for, I believe, all teams right now in the Ivy League. The top 4 teams in the Ivy make the Ivy League tournament. It's only a 4-team bracket that obviously sends the winner to the NCAA tournament. Right now, the only 2 teams that seem like locks, well, obviously Yale's in, they're 11-0. Looks like Dartmouth is going to get in, they are 7-4. And then there are really 4 other teams vying for 2 spots. Pennsylvania and Columbia are out. So it leaves Princeton, who is 6-5, Cornell, who's 6-5, Brown and Harvard, who are both 5-6, as the 4 remaining squads. This is a huge game for both these teams. The winner goes to 6-6. The loser, you're not out of it just yet, but you feel like you're almost out of it at 5-7. So a make or break game in the Ivy League between these 2 squads. It's potentially the biggest game of the season for both these teams. And I would say Harvard's been playing better. I know Brown won 3 in a row before their last loss to Cornell, Princeton, UPenn, and Columbia, but all those games were at home. Now they got to go to Cambridge, Harvard, or Massachusetts, to take on the Harvard Crimson, who again have won 3 of 4, wins against Cornell, Columbia, loss at Princeton, and again that huge win at Pennsylvania. I get it, Pennsylvania has not been the best team all season long, but still, going on the road, that means something, especially after Harvard lost their first matchup against the Quakers earlier this season. Winning the second one's a big deal. Also, Harvard beat Brown the first time around. They went to Brown and won the game by 13 points, the final score being 80-67. Again, we've talked about it. It is a massive game in the Ivy League. Both these teams are going to get up, obviously, to play this game. Their seasons are on the line, but we've seen Harvard beat this team before. The game is at Harvard, and I think Harvard's playing better right now. Again, Brown, 3 straight wins prior to the Cornell loss, but Columbia, guys, has 1 win all year long in the Ivy League. It's Brown. Prior to that 3-game winning streak for Brown, they went to Columbia and lost. I'm not that impressed. I'm not. Harvard beat this team the first time around again by 13 points, and I think the Crimson are going to get this one done. Led by their guards, Robert Hinton, Chandler Piggy, I think that's how you say his name, Hinton averaging 15 points a game. You got Thomas Beatties as well, who's averaging 11 points a night as well. I said as well twice, great. And for the Brown Bears, they are led by a couple leading scorers, but it's Keno Lilly Jr., who averages 18 points a game. He's by far the best guy for this Brown squad. Landon Lewis averaging 14 a game as well. But momentum's key, and you got to think of, again, all the 3 major factors that we look into, or that we look at into picking a game, they all favor Harvard. Again, location, Harvard. Again, it doesn't always mean everything. Hell, look at UMBC yesterday, but still, they're at home. Number 2, who won the first matchup? Well, Harvard did it, and they went to Brown and won that initial matchup. Number 3, who's playing with more momentum? You could argue potentially Brown, but Harvard's the one on the winning streak. They've won 3 straight. They've won 3 of 4, but they're the ones coming off the overtime victory in overtime. The overtime victory on the road at Pennsylvania. And again, I'm going to favor Harvard in that spot here. Hinton with 31 in the loss to Princeton, but 22 in the victory over Pennsylvania. Again, Beatties can score as well. 21 in the win over Cornell, 31 in the victory over Columbia. And again, Brown did lose to Columbia earlier this season. I can't really treat them all that seriously as a threat. Harvard, again, you need to get this victory to potentially get in the Ivy League tournament to join Yale and to join Dartmouth. I'm taking the Harvard Crimson at home. We get basically even odds for this game. Yes, we get minus 110 for the Crimson. We are going to take it. Don't play the spread. Play the money line. Harvard at home to kick off the day at 2 p.m. Minus 110 for the Crimson. We go on to our second best bet of the video, and we go to a spot here in the MAAC, the first of 2 matchups today in the MAAC. I'm taking Marist on the road against Sacred Heart. Okay, the Red Foxes haven't been the best to us this season, but after dropping back-to-back games randomly in the middle of conference play, they've won 4 in a row. They go to Siena and win, they go to Merrimack and close out a 1-point victory, and then back-to-back home victories against Canisius, who's bad, yes, and then Niagara by 3 points. They're going on the road to play Sacred Heart, a team that they have not played yet this season. Sacred Heart is 8-8 in the MAAC. Marist is 13-3. I think the Red Foxes can get it done. And it's not like this game doesn't matter to them. They are still trying to, again, fight for that number 1 spot in the MAAC tournament between them, Quinnipiac, and potentially Merrimack as well. But again, the Red Foxes are 13-3 so far this year in the conference. First seed, 20-5 as a whole this year. They do have a loss in non-conference play to both Harvard and Lee on the road. But regardless, again, they've been a pretty good conference team all year long. They are led by Josh Paliscari, who's averaging 16.5 points a game. Elijah Lewis averaging 12. Jackson Price averaging 10 points a game as well for the Red Foxes. And for Sacred Heart, just a middle-of-the-road team in the conference. And I get it. These teams can be scary at times at home. It does feel like a trap game for Marist. It does. We've seen them in games like this earlier this season, especially against the Fairfield loss that we had, unfortunately, earlier in the year on February 6th. Marist goes into Fairfield and loses the game by 3 points. And trust me, we're going to talk about the Stags in a little bit. But Sacred Heart, again, has not been playing the best of ball recently. They do have a victory over Merrimack. They beat them by 1 point on the road. That's a good win. Don't get me wrong. Again, Marist beat Merrimack on the road by 1 point as well. So Merrimack's, again, been in a lot of very close outings. But again, Marist has won 4 in a row going into this one. Sacred Heart, you look what they've done. Lost 3 of 4. After picking up a win on the road at Fairfield, they lose at home to Quinnipiac. Again, a good team. Lose at home to Siena. That's a team that you'd think Sacred Heart would beat. Again, Siena about the same record-wise, with Sacred Heart. But again, the games at Sacred Heart, you'd expect Sacred Heart to win that game in Pennsylvania. And then after that, again, the win at Merrimack, and then a loss on the road at St. Peter's in New Jersey. Again, the Peacocks, I guess a tougher team to beat on the road, but man, St. Peter's 5-11 in the conference. That's a game you'd like to have if you are Sacred Heart. I think, again, Marist can get them here. You look at the Pioneers of Sacred Heart, led by Tanner Thomas. He's going to do everything for this team. Thomas averaging 15 points and 6 rebounds a game. Same can be said about Anquan Hill, who averages 12 and 5. And then you look at one of their guards in Makai Connor as well, who only averages 9 points a game, but also is going to give you about a 7 assists a game. And he does average 2 steals a night as well. Again, everything involved, I do like Marist to win the basketball game. Again, it does feel like somewhat of a trap spot. I understand if we have to fall into the trap, we will. But I really don't think we are. Again, I just think all around Marist is the better team. It's not the same exact thing that we had the other day with Belmont going on the road to Missouri State, where, again, top team in the conference goes on the road. They're only slight favorites. It was kind of a weird spot. Again, a little bit of a different situation if you're comparing Missouri State to Sacred Heart. Again, Sacred Heart, middle of the pack team in the conference. Missouri State, obviously, the bottom of the Missouri Valley Conference. But still, we've got the top team in the conference in Marist, who has taken care of business in their last 4 games, winning their last 4. And it's not like, again, we need them to cover some crazy spread in this game. They are actually dogs in this game. The Pioneers of Sacred Heart are favorites to win this one, -115 for SHU, Marist +1.5 and -105. We're going to go with the dogs or the Foxes here on the road. Paliscari has been great in his last 2 outings. Marist, again, scoring 89 points in the Canisius victory. I get it, that's the last place team in the conference, but they're actually coming off a win right now. Paliscari, 31 points in that game. The win over Niagara, 22 for Paliscari as well. Pascalari, excuse me. I think the Red Foxes can get it done on the road. I don't think Sacred Heart's the toughest place to go into and play. The Pioneers, again, they know they're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team here in the conference. Marist is still trying to fight for that number 1 seed in the MAAC tourney. I'm going to take the Red Foxes on the road to continue their win streak and take it to 5 games. I'm taking Marist on the road at -105 on the money line again for the Red Foxes. We go on to our third best bet of the video, and as promised, we stay in the MAAC, and we get our first appearance of the year for the Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. The Mount go on the road to take on Fairfield over in Fairfield, Connecticut. We're taking the Mount here. The Mount's been very good. Now, are they going to finish with a top 3 seed in the MAAC? Probably not. They're probably going to end up with that 4 spot, but still, this is arguably the team that's playing with the most momentum right now in the conference. 4-game winning streak. If you date back to their last 7 outings, 6 out of 7 games they have won, with the only loss being a 3-point loss at home to the Iona Gales. Detailing this 7-game streak, it started with a road win at Merrimack. Again, that's a good victory. A road win at St. Peter's that lost to Iona, and then 4 straight victories after that heading into this game. Win on the road at Niagara, a win at Canisius, a win at home against St. Peter's, and then a 7-point victory at home against the Rider Bronx. Now, the Bronx, they've just been bad for us all season long, but the Mountaineers, again, are playing with all the momentum in the world. They are 10-6 now in the MAAC, and I get it. They have to go on the road for this spot, but we've seen this team time in and time out in this 7-game stretch go on the road and win. All of the games that they've won in the 7-game stretch, or all the games they've had on the road this year in the 7-game stretch, they have won. Again, at Merrimack, at St. Peter's, at Niagara, at Canisius. This team does get it done on the road. Now they're taking on the Fairfield Stags, a team that has been very competitive all season long, but again, momentum-wise, not playing with much of it. They are coming off a victory on the road against the Rider Bronx. Now, Rider just continued to screw us all season long. Again, Fairfield, who was coming off 3 straight losses, goes into Rider, and they beat the Bronx by 20 points. Unbelievably disgusting performance out of Rider. That team sucks, okay? Right? They're horrible. They're going to Merrimack today, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, Fairfield, prior to the Rider win, and this is why we took Rider in that game, they had lost 3 in a row, and even if you date back to their last 7 games prior to the Rider game, they had looked horrible. Merrimack game at home, they lose by 21. They go to Quinnipiac, lose. They get blown out at Iona. They somehow beat Marist, whatever. They lose to Sacred Heart at home. They go to St. Peter's and lose by 13 points. They play Manhattan and lose by 13. Then they get Rider and they beat them by 20 on the road. It doesn't make sense, but I don't think Fairfield's able to put back-to-back victories together, and especially again with a team that they're playing tonight in Mount St. Mary's that has all the momentum in the world. The Mountaineers again are playing, they're on a 5-game winning streak, or 4-game winning streak again, wins in 6 out their last 7. This team is currently led in scoring by Dola Adebayo, who's averaging 12.5 points a game. Dallas Hobbs averages 12. They've got a lot of guys on the Mountaineers that can score, and they play decent defense as well. For the Fairfield Stags, again, they're led pretty much in this recent stretch almost every night by Prophet Johnson in scoring. This is a guy who does average 12 points a game, and on top of that, he does average 7 rebounds a game as well. And this is why, again, we picked Rider the other night or a week ago. It's because, again, Prophet Johnson is the only guy who really does anything for this team. Johnson averages 12 and 7. Everybody else is less than a 10 points per game scored. Jamie Bergens averages 9. Dion Perry averages 9. Braden Sparks averages 8.5 as well. They're just not that good of a scoring team. So again, the only way this team wins is if Mount St. Mary's plays like Rider did last Friday and completely lays an egg, wets the bed in terms of scoring. And really, that's the only way it seems like Fairfield can win, at least recently. I mean, since, again, the month of February, they've only been able to win very low-scoring games. A 59-56 victory over the Marist Red Foxes. a 69-49 victory over Rider. Again, I get it. They almost scored 70, but their opponents didn't even crack 50. So they didn't ultimately have to do anything scoring-wise. It is what it is. Rider played a horrible game. Credit to Fairfield. Again, Johnson with 17, 9, and 4. That's impressive. And again, the guy, if you look at, their ESPN stat sheet, he leads them in every single point or every single stat possible. I mean, again, you look at the Manhattan loss. The guy puts up 23, 10, and 6. Prophet Johnson is this entire team. If Mount St. Mary's can find any way to contain the guy, they should be fine. I like the Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers, we'll call them the Mount, to go on the road. Again, they are the all-around much better built team, and they're not, again, just reliant on one guy like Fairfield is. I'm taking the Mount to go on the road to Fairfield, Connecticut, and take care of business. We look at the odds for this game. The Mount, 1.5 point favorites. I think the money line's still playable, obviously, minus 140. That will play if you want to take the spread, though, at minus 1.5. Not the worst option. Regardless, whatever you do take, we are siding with the Mount today to go on the road to Fairfield and take care of business. We move on now to arguably two of the bigger games today. This one, I would argue, is the biggest game. We go to the Big Ten. The UCLA Bruins go on the road to West Lafayette, Indiana, to take on the Purdue Boilermakers, who are still somehow ranked. Purdue is ranked 20th. I can only assume when the next rankings come out, they will not be ranked because we have them losing to UCLA today. Okay? This team's on a 4-game losing streak, and I get it. These are all tough games they've just played. But this is an extremely tough game as well. Okay? Purdue coming off 4 straight L's. After 4 straight wins over the likes of Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, and USC, they've dropped 4 in a row, lost on the road to Michigan, lost at home to Wisconsin, lost in East Lansing to Michigan State, and then most recently, that loss in Bloomington against Indiana. Now, I personally think the Indiana Hoosiers are playing their way back into the NCAA tournament. I think as long as they take care of business and do what they should do in the Pacific Northwest, which is beat Washington, and I think at least play a competitive game against Oregon, they should be in the NCAA tournament. But for Purdue to let Indiana, their rivals, their in-state rivals, back into the tournament because, and ultimately, again, the reason why Indiana is getting back in the tournament, yes, it is a result of the Michigan State win on the road, but it really is that win against Purdue. Purdue's up by 12 at half. And Indiana comes out in that second half, and they go on, a 21-3 run? Unexcusable out of Purdue. Unexcusable. Fletcher Lawyer is the only guy who showed up. And yes, Trey Kaufman ran fouled out, and he was dealing with foul trouble all night. But really, Fletcher Lawyer is the only guy who showed up in that game. Braden Smith didn't do anything. Trey Kaufman had a pretty brutal night again with Omar Ballo being on him for most of the game. Regardless, Purdue didn't show up to beat Indiana. They looked good in the first half and looked like a different team in the second. Again, allowing the Hoosiers potentially back into the field. Obviously, they're on the bubble. I think the Hoosiers are going to get in the NCAA tournament. I think they'll probably have to play in the first 4. Regardless, though, Indiana should have a virtual home game in Dayton, Ohio, in the first 4 of the tournament. Anyways, I think Purdue continues to spiral here. I think UCLA gets them. If you've been watching the channel, again, we've been all about the resurgence of UCLA basketball this season, obviously. Ever since that 4-game losing streak and the huge winning streak they went on after, we've been all over UCLA. We jumped on them during that winning streak, obviously, right after they got out of the losing streak. We quickly jumped on UCLA, and again, we pinpointed Adai Mara's emergence as the reason why this team's been so great. Now, again, Mara is still a defensive unit. The man is incredibly tough to stop, but I also thought UCLA, and again, this isn't anything that changed specifically like, Mara playing more did, but still, the talent that this team has had, eventually, or the talent they have this season, eventually, they were going to click, and that's what's starting to happen. Now, the last 4 games, they've split. They've gone 500 in their last 4, losing at Illinois, going to Indiana and winning, choking a game away at home to Dawson Garcia and the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and then a win in their last one by 8 points over Ohio State. I think they're able to put 2 and 2 together here and win back-to-back games. Again, a good victory against Ohio State, right? Especially an Ohio State team that looked unstoppable and looked like the 2017 Golden State Warriors in their next game in Los Angeles against USC. It was very weird how the Buckeyes just turned, and they didn't look horrible in the UCLA game, but they looked how they did on Sunday and then how they did at USC. Very odd. Regardless, I think UCLA is able to go into Purdue and win. We saw them going to Indiana and win. I get it again. Different vibes, obviously, in West Lafayette than there are in Bloomington in Assembly Hall. But I do think they're able to go to MAAC and win. I think so. Maybe a hot take. And again, the more conservative play here is plus 5.5 for UCLA. But this team, again, I've bought into UCLA. I still think this team can make a run in the tournament. I definitely still believe it. We've seen this team beat ranked teams all year long. And sure, have they done it on the road this season yet? No. this is where it happens. And if it's ever going to happen, it's going to be against the Purdue team that's on a 4-game losing streak. And again, we said in their losing streak, oh, they're playing a bunch of tough teams. Sure, UCLA is a tough team too. They're more than a tough team. UCLA is incredibly tough. Again, with all their scores and the potential of Sebastian MAAC, Tyler Bilodeau, Sky Clark, Daly, hell, Adai Mara sometimes can score, but mostly on the defensive end. They have so many guys who can hurt you. They are difficult. And again, what are we going to get out of Purdue? It was all Fletcher Lawyer in Bloomington. Will Braden Smith show up? What will Trey Kaufman-Renn be in this game against Bilodeau? And potentially, again, as I hope will happen, against Adai Mara. How is Trey Kaufman-Renn going to be able to work the ball inside against those guys? I think everything matchup-wise does favor UCLA. Again, obviously, yes, with the game being in West Lafayette, that's a major advantage with the game being in MAAC for Purdue. I understand that. So again, conservative play, plus 5.5 for the UCLA Bruins. I don't mind the money line as well. I might sprinkle plus 190 for UCLA. It doesn't feel horrible, but I do think they cover the 5 points because I do think this game is competitive. They have covered the plus 5.5 point line in every game they have played since Monday, January 13th. So they've been pretty solid on this line all year long. UCLA is pretty much always in competitive games. If they're not, they're usually the ones, finding a way to, again, I wouldn't say get the blowout, obviously, but find a way to pull away and win by about 10 points. I think UCLA keeps it competitive at West Lafayette, and I just don't know what we're going to see out of Purdue, again, with the recent struggles. So it's going to be UCLA on the road plus 5.5. I don't mind the money line as well, but again, the official play and the best bet for this specific game is UCLA plus 5.5 in the Midwest. We move on to our final best bet of the video, and we go to the MAAC, as we have got the Akron Zips taking on the Kent State Golden Flashes. We're taking Akron with the spread, minus 3.5 for the Zips. We have picked against Akron a little bit recently, and hell, it's worked the last 2 times we picked against Akron, right? We picked Northern Illinois spread against the Zips, it hit, and then we took Ball State spread at home in Muncie, Indiana, against the Zips as well. Okay, we're going to take Akron now. I think this is a perfect, I don't even know if I want to call it a buy low spot, but I don't really understand the line at the same time. I get it. Akron's been playing very competitive basketball games recently. I understand that. But there is a difference sometimes. Something happens when you have to play competitive games. And when you have to play a rivalry game like Akron versus Kent State is, how they're separated by 30 miles, 30 minutes. Something happens. Akron's going to get up for this game. Guys, the last time these two teams played in Kent, Ohio, Akron beat them 85-71. We had Akron in that game, and they dominated that basketball game. All right. I think we had Akron. Oh, wait, did we have Kent State that game? I don't remember, actually. No, I think we had Akron. I think. No, we might have Kent. Regardless, Akron's still the best team in the conference, obviously. Again, their one loss to Ohio, it is what it is. They lose at the Bobcats. It's not a bad team. Move on. All right. Akron, again, one of the smallest teams in the country. They play with pace. And obviously, again, I thought a big factor of why I thought they were going to have trouble at Ball State was potentially the presence of Peyton Sparks. Obviously, that was not a thing. Peyton Sparks scored 3 points the entire game. Now, his layup at the end of the game did cash us the spread, so thank you, but Peyton Sparks was horrible in that game. Played the worst game he's had all season long. I haven't seen that guy play that poorly since he was in Bloomington playing for the Indiana Hoosiers. So again, this size doesn't really matter for Akron. They play small, sure, but they crash, and it's just, they're a tough defensive squad. They're a gritty team who's going to score a lot, obviously, because they're going to run on you. And defense, you'd think on paper is going to be a problem for them, but it's really not. Now, again, Von Cameron Davis is the leading scorer for the Golden Flashes. He averages 15 points a game. He's great, don't get me wrong. He's good. Jalen Sullinger is really solid for this team, too. But again, Akron, we saw in the first matchup, was able again to neutralize those guys as much as possible, and they were able to still come away from that game with a 13-point victory. Again, Sullinger had 23 points in that one, but still, Akron was able to outscore that team, and the Zips were able to win 85-71. I get it. Kent State's playing great basketball right now. They are, right? Since that Akron lost, they have only lost once since, and that was a game on the road in Oxford against Miami of Ohio, where they lost by 4 points. Again, right? That was a tough game. Miami of Ohio is a good team as well. I just think Akron's better here. We saw them win the first matchup by, 13? Now, 14? Now, I don't think they're going to win by that much this time around, just because, again, Akron has been playing, I don't want to say worse, but they haven't been playing, they don't have the same momentum that they had then, obviously, with the close games they've been playing, and obviously the loss they took at Ohio. I mean, at the same time, Kent State has been playing better ball than they were back then, obviously, right? I mean, at the time of the Akron loss, I mean, 2 games prior to that, they lost to Ohio. They had losses to West Michigan and Miami of Ohio at home, right? It's not the same Kent State team now that we got in that first matchup in late January. However, again, Akron's going to rise to the occasion. They are the best team in the conference. They are still potentially looking at a 12 seed in the NCAA tournament if they just win the games they're supposed to down the stretch, not just in the MAAC regular season, but obviously in the MAAC tournament as well. And I expect Akron to get it done. We expect them to win, and we expect them to win this game by close to double digits. I'd say anywhere from that 8 to 11 point range. That's where personally I would predict how much Akron wins this game by. They're just the better basketball team. Again, they play quick. They're going to score on you. They're an explosive offense. Nate Johnson, Davari Johnson, Isaiah Gray. It's a good basketball team. They're going to find ways to score. They're going to find ways to push the pace. And again, they find ways to play solid defensive ball. They just do. James Okonkwo, again, is their big. He serves as their big. He's 6'8". He functions as their center/4, and he does a good job at it. Averages 7 and 8. But again, it's good enough for the Zips. They will find a way to beat Kent State. This rivalry matchup is going to go in favor of the Zips, the first place team in the MAAC conference. And oh, did I mention, this game clinches the MAAC championship in the regular season for Akron. It's a huge basketball game. They can clinch the MAAC championship against their rivals at home. It's a huge game. Give me the Akron Zips, who again seem destined to make the NCAA tournament. We will see how the MAAC championship and MAAC tournament goes. Again, I think they might have trouble with teams like Miami of Ohio. Still, again, I'm not going to write off Kent State in that tourney as well. Same with Ohio. But again, it does feel like Akron's the favorite, with Miami of Ohio likely being the second best team in the conference. But again, we'll see what happens once we get to the MAAC tourney. In this one, though, we are taking the Akron Zips at home to not just win in Akron, Ohio, but to cover the 3.5 points as well, again, as we expect that final score and that final margin to be around 8 to 11 in favor of the Zips. So folks, that'll do it for our 5 best bets here for college basketball here on February 28th. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow again for potentially 10 best bets if we can hit 130 likes on this video. And of course, we'll be back later today for our NBA predictions as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.